Good afternoon, the best Hugh Mercer students I've seen all day. Give yourself a thumbs up. All right. Welcome to Hugh Mercer Elementary School. We are here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. We are having a very exciting school program today, and I have a couple of very exciting people to introduce to you. The first one is going to be Mrs. Anna Dickinson. She's actually a mom of a student here at Hugh Mercer, but during the day, when she's not being a mom, she works at an office in Fredericksburg that works with conservation. And if you remember the lessons that I've been doing in your classrooms over the past couple of weeks, we've talked about conservation, helping nature, saving animals. Well, she is here today because this is her company, Marsdell Day, and they are coming to talk to you about conservation and send you an extra special message from our next guest. So our next guest is standing on the floor down here. This is Mr. Sean Sweeney. He actually lives in Washington, D.C., and he is coming to you today from the Jane Goodall Institute. And again, if you remember the lessons that we've had, our STEM lessons this week, we've talked about the famous conservation scientist, Jane Goodall. So he is actually a personal friend of hers, and he is here today to deliver a special message. So during the program today, very quiet, on your bottoms, listen, learn, get yourselves excited, because he's gonna get you up and have you moving around, and he's actually going to be even giving you an opportunity to speak. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Mrs. Anna Dickinson from the Marsdell Day.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Mrs. Phillips said, my name is Anna, and I work for an environmental company with an office here in Fredericksburg. Now, earlier this year, our company president, who's going to come up here in a moment, decided to start the Stand with Wildlife campaign so that we could talk about the importance of wildlife conservation and what our company and people, even kids like you, can do to get involved with wildlife conservation. Do you all know what conservation is? Well, conservation is the protection of things found in nature and focuses on responsibly using Earth's natural resources like water, wildlife, and forests. People who care about conservation want those natural resources to stay around for a long time so that they're here for many years in the future. Conservation also means trying to keep the environment clean and healthy. Do you all try not to litter? Do you recycle at home? Do you turn off the lights when you leave the room? If you do, then you are practicing conservation, and that is awesome. So now I'm going to turn the microphone over to our company president, Mrs. Rebecca Rubin, to come talk to you about wildlife conservation.
Well, hello, everybody. You know what? I am so proud and so happy to be here today. Do you know why? I'm proud and happy because I feel like I'm looking into the face of the future. I know that all of you are going to take the things that you're hearing here today, and those things are going to travel with you through your lifetime in the way you think about nature. So we as a company are just so happy to be here. We're so proud to be working with Hugh Mercer Elementary on this initiative. I know that many of you have spent lots of time in the outdoors. I know that you know how important the outdoors and natural resource conservation is to wildlife, but today you're gonna learn a lot more about that, and the things you learn here today are gonna stay with you forever. So I want to give a big round of applause to Sean Sweeney, our next speaker. Thank you, Sean.
So I'm going to be the third person to say good afternoon. So good afternoon to all of you. Thank you so much for welcoming me so well into your school. And thank you to Ms. Phillips and Ms. Anna and Marcel Day for having me here today too. As Miss Anna said, I'm down here from Washington, D.C. to visit with you today and talk a little bit about conservation and one particular species of animal that we really work hard to protect and conserve called the chimpanzee. And the reason we are focused at the Jane Goodall Institute on chimpanzees is because of one very special scientist. Her name is Dr. Jane Goodall. And we're gonna be talking a lot today about Dr. Jane's life as a scientist. But before we get into that, I wanna show you a video and see if you can identify with Dr. Jane when she was a little girl before she became a famous scientist. So can we go ahead and show that video?
Me, Jane. Jane had a stuffed toy chimpanzee named Jubilee. She cherished Jubilee and took him everywhere she went. And Jane loved to be outside. She watched birds making their nests. Spiders spinning their webs. And squirrels chasing one another up and down trees. Jane learned all that she could about the animals and plants she studied in her backyard and read about in books. One day, curious Jane wondered where eggs came from. So she and Jubilee snuck into Grandma Nut's chicken coop. Hid behind some straw. Stayed very still and observed the miracle. It was a magical world, full of joy and wonder, and Jane felt very much a part of it. often climbed her favorite tree, which she named Beach. She would lay her cheek against its trunk and seem to feel the sap flowing beneath the bark. Jane could feel her own heart beating, beating, beating. With the wind in her hair, she read and reread the books about Tarzan of the Apes, in which another girl, also named Jane, lived in the jungles of Africa. Jane dreamed of a life in Africa too. A life living with and helping all animals. At night, Jane would tuck Jubilee into bed, say her prayers, and fall asleep. To awake one day to her dream come true.
So, are any of you able to join me in saying that you love animals too, just like Dr. Jane? Yeah? Do any of you have a stuffed animal like Jubilee? Yeah? So this video is a true video about Dr. Jane when she was a child. It's a cartoon, but it's still true. So if we all love animals and we have one that we care about, a toy animal that we care about, we're starting off just like Dr. Jane. So what's really neat about that is what happened with Dr. Jane as she grew up. So these are photos here of Dr. Jane when she was about your age. So we just looked at a cartoon of Dr. Jane, but this is what she actually looked like. And you can see Jubilee there. Jubilee is still about 79 years old, and she doesn't have all that fur, but she's still around. So that's Dr. Jane as a little girl, and as she grew up, she stayed really interested in animals, and as the video said, she continued studying them, eventually to, my clicker's not working. Oh, there we go. Oh. There we go. Okay. So eventually to go to Africa, and specifically a country called Tanzania, where there are families of chimpanzees. And chimpanzees were the first wildlife species, animal species, kind of animal that Dr. Jane studied in the wild. And she got there because of her interest in animals and learning about them. So she got to go and study the chimpanzees in Gombe National Park in Tanzania. And because of her research there, we've learned a lot about not only chimpanzees, but many other animals. One of the most important things that Dr. Jane taught us, or she discovered with chimpanzees, is that they make and use tools. Now, we all use tools, right? We use pencils in our classroom. Do we use a toothbrush to brush our teeth? Yeah, so those are kinds of tools, right? So chimpanzees use tools in all different kinds of creative ways. Some chimpanzees will take a rock and a nut and use the rock to break open the nut so they can eat the nut that's on the inside. And in Dr. Jane's case, she came upon a couple of chimpanzees that were sitting on a termite mound. And the termites were living inside the mound. She saw the chimps take a twig or a blade of grass, lick it, and then stick it in the termite mound, and then pull it out. And on the blade of grass would be some termites, and then they would eat them. So that's what Dr. Jane discovered, and it was the first time that any scientist, any human being, had ever recorded another animal other than human beings, other than us, using a tool. So that was a really big discovery because it changed the way that human beings understand animals. And now, today, we've learned that there are hundreds of species of animals that use all different kinds of tools. So that was one really important discovery that Dr. Jane made with chimpanzees that showed them that they're similar to us. We also know from Dr. Jane's research that chimps are like us in their interactions, the way they treat each other and the way they spend time with each other in family groups. And we know that they're not all that different from us in the way that they spend time with their brothers and sisters and even with their moms. They live in groups just like we do and spend time with friends, and most of them grow up living with their moms and their siblings. So this was another thing that we didn't know before Dr. Jane did her research, and now we know so much more about not only chimpanzees, but many other species of animals. And we're really happy that we have Dr. Jane as an inspiration to many scientists who have gone on to study many different species of animals. So those are just a couple of things that we've learned about chimpanzees. One of the other things that Dr. Jane has learned over her 55 years of research is that across Africa, where chimpanzees live, their numbers, the number of chimpanzees that live in Africa is going down. And so, do you remember Miss Anna talking about conservation and why we do conservation? So it's because there are species of animals, types of animals, and types of plants and trees that are disappearing from our planet. And there's a few different reasons why, for chimpanzees, they're disappearing. Mostly it's because we're cutting down their homes so that we can grow different things and so that we can use the wood for our own use. And the rate at which we're doing that, how fast we're cutting down those trees, is too fast for the forests to keep up so that the chimps can continue to have a home. So we want to work on forest conservation so we can protect the forests. We can grow trees in ways that we can produce wood for our own use that won't take away the home of the chimpanzees. So that's another thing that we've learned. And our organization, the Jane Goodall Institute, Dr. Jane's nonprofit here in the United States, we work on conservation across Africa to help chimpanzees. And because chimpanzees share their forest home with many other kinds of animals, we're helping a lot of other animals as well. So that's how we're participating in conservation for wildlife and why we were so excited to learn about the Stand Up for Wildlife campaign and why we're glad to be together today so we can recognize that we can all play a role in conservation. So what I want to do now is show you another video. It's a very special video from a special guest, so we can go ahead and show that, and then we'll continue with our conversation.
Hello, this is Jane Goodall. I'm really sorry I can't be with you in person today at the Marsdale Day School, because I'd love to talk to you about Roots and Shoots. It's a perfect program for students like you. You'll learn so much about ways in which you can help take care of our planet, how you can help people, animals, and the environment. You'll realize that each one of us makes a difference every single day, and you can choose what sort of difference you want to make. The wonderful thing is that the harder you work to make this a better world, the better you'll feel, and you'll be having lots of fun too. I hope things go really well this afternoon, and I'm so glad that even though I'm not there, one of our JGI staff, Roots and Shoots people, is with you. And I should be thinking of you all. And a distance greeting. The call of the chimpanzee. Bye.
So that was a message that Dr. Jane herself recorded just for you. So I was really glad that we were able to do that so that she could at least be here with us in spirit. One of the things that Dr. Jane mentioned in her talk is that each and every one of us makes a difference every day. So Miss Anna talked about recycling and turning off the lights. Those are each different ways that we can make a difference in conservation for our planet together. And about 25 years ago, Dr. Jane started a program for young people, just like yourselves. And actually, I was a member of Roots and Shoots when I was younger. And in our program, Roots and Shoots, as Dr. Jane said, young people like yourselves come up with projects that help either other animals, that help the environment, or that help other people. So we're really excited to be here today to learn about many of the projects that are already happening here at Hugh Mercer and talk about ways that we can continue working together to help wildlife and help other people and help the environment. So we are going to end there, at least for the talking part of our presentation. And now what I would like to do is switch to a little activity for us to do together, where we're going to learn about being chimpanzees a little bit. Does that sound fun? Okay, so I have Miss Anna and Miss Phillips who are going to help me demonstrate here. We're going to do chimpanzee yoga. What we're gonna do is learn how to spell using our bodies. So I'm gonna go ahead and move forward here a few slides. This will work. There we go. All right, so together we're gonna spell chimp, which is short for chimpanzee. So a couple of our yoga poses here take two people. So I'm gonna have really quickly Miss Anna and Miss Phillips model the H and the M, and then with someone next to you, you're gonna get up and we're gonna spell the whole word, chimp, okay? So could you demonstrate the H together? So that's our H. Do we see the H? Okay. Now can we do the M? Do we see the M? All right, now it's going to be your turn. So while you're sitting there, we're gonna make a C. You don't have to get up yet, you can stay there. So the C is in the sitting position. You make a C. Yeah. All right, so this makes the first letter in chimpanzee, or chimp. So now we're gonna get up, and with someone right next to you, we're gonna make the H, okay? Okay, so do you see the H? And this makes the second letter in chimpanzee. So now, while you're standing, let's make the letter I. And this makes the third letter in chimpanzee. All right. Oops. I hit escape. I hit escape bikes. All right, so now while you're standing, go back with the person standing next to you and make the letter M. So this makes our fourth letter in chimpanzee. Now, on your own again, let's make the letter P. So now we have our fifth and final letter for chimpanzee. Give yourselves a round of applause. What's that? So now that we got to get up and laugh a little bit, we're gonna laugh some more and learn how to speak chimpanzee, okay? So you all heard Dr. Jane give that distance call, right, in her video? So we're gonna watch another video now so we can learn from some chimpanzees how they do what's called a pant hoot. So let's watch.
Now, you try.
All right, so that said, your turn, but we're gonna try it once all together on the count of 3, okay? So I'll tell you that when you see chimpanzees making noises like that, it's when they're really excited about finding food in the forest. They found some really tasty treat somewhere, and they want to tell all their friends. So, you know, when Dr. Jane gave her pant hoot, it's because she was so excited that we were going to be together today learning about chimpanzees and what we can do to help them and help our planet. So we want to do a pant hoot now and try and help Dr. Jane hear how excited we are for doing that, okay? So on the count of 3, let's do a pant hoot together, okay? 1, 2, 3. Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good job. Good job. I am sure with how loud you were, Dr. Jane definitely heard you. And she's so grateful for all that you do already for conservation, and we're really glad to be here with you today. So now what I wanted to do was we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the conservation work that's already happening here at Hugh Mercer, and I wanted to hand it over to Mrs. Phillips.
I'll even let you do a pan hoot at the end because I have 2 very special friends here. They are students at Lafayette Upper Elementary School because they graduated last year and they did some wonderful conservation projects, and I just want to have a chance to show you some of those. So I'm going to invite Miss Libby Furrow to come forward and hold your applause till the end because remember I'm going to let you do a pan hoot. And Jackson Billingsley. And I will start with Libby. This is Libby. Her parents are kind of over there in the audience. Libby actually recognized the importance of conserving monarch butterflies, and your classroom teachers can talk to you about this week. They're the beautiful black and orange butterflies that you often see in your garden late in the summer. Well, what's really interesting is they fly all the way to Mexico, and they overwinter in Mexico, have babies, and the babies grow up and come back. So they've got a really long journey to make, but they really only eat a few kinds of foods. And if you remember, Mr. Sweeney was talking about conserving your environment to try to protect animals. Libby came up with an idea about planting milkweed in our school garden, and she actually experimented with different ways to make the seeds grow even faster. So your teachers can bring you outside to see that. So Libby has some pictures up here that we will have in our school this week that you can see. Jackson and a friend, Isaac, worked on understanding the importance of mason bees because they're pollinators. And everybody knows by the time you're in 1st and 2nd grade here, at least at Hugh Mercer, you know that insects are great pollinators and they bring pollen from plant to plant, which then helps the plant produce seeds, but also it produces food for us. So if any of you have ever eaten an apple, or you've eaten an orange, or you've eaten almonds or cucumbers or squash, any of those things need pollinators. Well, Mason designed his very own bee house, or a bee, actually you call it the bee inn, and he actually constructed this out of wood and placed this in our garden outside. And again, your teachers can show this to you. And he was successful also because the mother bees actually came there and laid eggs, and their babies started to grow right here in our Hugh Mercer garden. So just 2 examples of how we've done conservation at Hugh Mercer by our 2 students. We also had teachers this week who saved baby animals. We have Ms. Sponseller. Is Ms. Sponseller in the room? She's back here in the back. Ms. Sponseller, if you will remember, called me because she found a lost baby squirrel that needed some help, and we got that baby squirrel to an important person called an animal rehabilitation person to take care of her baby squirrel. And Ms. Hughes, who teaches kindergarten, on Sunday brought me another baby squirrel. So we've had some saving of baby squirrels. We've even saved spiders. So lots of great things happening in here at Hugh Mercer. I'm going to give you a chance to give a pan hoot here, and then we're going to sit back down and turn it over to Mr. Sweeney. So if you think these are great conservation projects and you think you might like to try something like that this year, Let's do a pan hoot. You ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, all right. Congratulations, Libby and Jackson. Go ahead and sit. Shh. Okay, I need children back. I need my children back. Thank you. I'm going to turn this back over to Mr. Sweeney. Thank you.
I think now we can take some questions. Do you want to do questions? Okay. I think the other mic is back here. So we're gonna take questions, and Mrs. Phillips is gonna come around and pick the folks
Yep.
who are gonna ask.
And where are my second graders? Fabulous. Where are my first graders? Obviously, you're up front. Okay. My second graders right now have been working on learning different ways to ask questions. But as kids, you guys all know how to ask questions. Who, what, where, why, when. If there's something you want to know today, you could either ask one of my ambassadors or you could ask Mr. Sweeney. Raise your hand, I will come around and we'll ask some questions. So I'm going to start here in the front. Superman, I want you to ask the question in my ear first, and then I'll share it with Mr. Sweeney.
What's a
Well, that was nice and loud. Let's go ahead and ask it.
What's a chimpanzee?
What is a chimpanzee?
What is a chimpanzee? So a chimpanzee is a kind of primate. They're like these guys up here. So they're a kind of primate that lives in Africa, and they're actually considered a great ape, like gorillas or orangutans or another great ape called a bonobo. And they're different from monkeys because they don't have a tail. So when you see a primate with a tail, like this one, that's a monkey. And chimps don't have a tail. See?
So that's a very good question. What was your name?
Cheyenne Khan.
And your teacher?
Miss Trouble.
Very good job, Ms. Trublick, for teaching those questioning skills. Okay, let's come over here. That was a boy, so I'm looking for a girl. Do I have a girl up front? Yes, all right, you're gonna ask your question first to me.
What is a animal?
What is an animal?
What is an animal? That's a really good question. You want to know something? We're all animals. So animals are creatures that live on planet Earth in all different kinds. There are all different kinds of animals, from birds to fish to lizards and reptiles, different rodents, horses.
That's a very good
All the
question.
different wildlife that we have on planet Earth.
Tell us your name.
Sophia.
And who is your teacher, Sophia?
Miss Reynolds.
Great job, Ms. Reynolds, on questioning skills. Very good. And boys and girls, remember when somebody is answering a question, you need to be very quiet because listening skills are important too. 2 more? Sure. Okay. 2 more. We had a boy, we had a girl, so we need a boy. You're nice and close. I'm not picking favorites, he's just close. Excellent question. This has something to do with our squirrel rescue. Why do squirrels live in trees?
You're probably a better person to answer that than me.
Well, I'd be curious to hear your answer, and I'll be happy to tell him my answer when you're finished. How about that?
I think squirrels live in trees because that's where they've adapted to live in our environment.
And boys and girls, you're going to hear a lot about that when you get to be a little bit older, but that's correct. I mean, all animals have a different home. So birds, for example, in the spring will nest in a tree. Squirrels also nest in trees. It keeps them safe. So think about all the things that could possibly hurt a squirrel. It's got 4 legs, got very strong legs, got that bushy tail, just like some of the primates up here, lots of balance. So that's where they choose to live. Good question. All right, so your name, I'm sorry?
Solomon.
And Solomon, who is your teacher?
Miss Overstreet.
Way to go, Miss Overstreet. All right, so we had a girl, we had a boy, who do I have over here? A girl? Right here. You're close. I'm not picking favorites. We have a question about mommy monkeys having baby monkeys. So we know that some animals lay eggs, and we know that some animals have live birth. So she's asking specifically about the animals from today.
So chimpanzees are live birth animals, and when they're born, they're just like humans in that they need their mom for a really long time. So, and as I said, they actually spend most of their lives with their moms. I actually just spent some time with chimpanzees in the wild in Africa this spring and met a chimpanzee who we named Sparrow. She's in her 50s, which for chimpanzees in the wild is a lot of years. And she was hanging out with her two sons, Sinbad and Simba. And both of them are in their 30s. So they spend a lot of time with their moms, even into the later years of their lives.
So that means I'm a mom, and if I've got really old kids still living with me, that's okay, right?
Sure.
Yeah, okay, good question.
No judgment from the chimp kingdom.
Here we go. Tell us your name.
Remy.
And Remy, who is your teacher?
Miss Sipprich.
Absolutely great question there. So I think that's probably all the questions we'll take for today. Sure. Okay. I know, but who else can you ask these questions? You can ask who? Your teachers this afternoon.
Yeah. Are you good? Yep. Do you want me to do that first? Okay. So what I want to do right now, as we wrap up our time together, is tell you a story. And this story is about a very important monkey named Mr. H. So Mr. H is a monkey that was given to Dr. Jane as a present about 20 years ago. And Mr. H was given to Dr. Jane by a friend of hers whose name was Mr. Gary Hahn. And an important thing about Mr. Hahn is that he was a magician, but he was a magician who was blind. So he couldn't see anything. And when you saw his magic shows, he didn't reveal that he couldn't see anything until the very end of his shows. His audience, the people watching his magic tricks, never knew that he couldn't see. And Mr. Hahn is a friend of Dr. Jane's and someone who taught Dr. Jane that even with something like blindness, you can overcome so many different obstacles and become really famous and successful in whatever you do. So Mr. H is this toy monkey that Mr. Hahn gave to Dr. Jane for her birthday. And Jane told Mr. Hahn, I know you can't tell that he's not black like a chimpanzee is, but you should be able to tell that he's not a chimpanzee because he's got a tail. So Mr. Hahn told Dr. Jane, never mind, you take Mr. H around with you to the rest of the world and let him be your mascot to show that people can can make a difference and overcome the biggest obstacles to make this world a better place. So we have here Mr. H Jr., that's a replica of Mr. H, and we're leaving him here today with you so that he can be an inspiration to you going forward from here. So this is your Mr. H Jr. for Hugh Mercer. Thank you so much for having me here today. And I'm gonna hand it back over to the folks at Marcel Day.
so much. Don't go anywhere. Did y'all have a good time today? Did you have fun? Well, then maybe you'll help me out here while we give some thank yous to the people who came today, okay? So y'all stay with me here. I'd like to start with Ms. Phillips. We have a little gift for you to say thank you and to help you get started with your Roots and Shoots program here at Hugh Mercer. Big round of applause. You are so welcome. And what a great audience. Stay with me, audience. And I want to give a really, really special shout out to our friend Sean here, because what he's doing is so important. He's out there teaching about nature. He's sharing his love for nature with you and his passion for nature with you, and on behalf of Dr. Jane. So we have a couple things for you. We have a contribution to your Roots and Shoots program. Thank you. And of course, we have the Marsdell Day T-shirt of honor. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody, I think this is the last thing we're going to do here, the very last thing before your teachers escort you. I would like everybody, because this is a Stand with Wildlife campaign, Stand with Wildlife. We're going to stand and show our support. Please stand with wildlife. Thank you, everybody. Have a great one.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Thank you, boys and girls and special guests. We will use our contribution to help us with some classroom projects this year. Right now, you need to turn to the most important person in your life right now, which is your classroom teacher, and they will help dismiss you back to class. I would ask that those in the back stay with me for a few moments. Libby and Jackson, stay with me, okay? Let's dismiss this side first.